I'm Ralph Mitchell, and this is Larry Roth. We're here to discuss the latest developments with the railroad tracks and tourist train possibilities. What has happened is Ulster County Government has decided to rip up tracks up by the Ashokan Reservoir, and that kind of eliminates the possibility of a tourist train to the Glenford Dyke and the Ashokan Reservoir. So Larry is a spokesperson, PR person for the U&D Railway Preservation Corporation.
Revitalization, actually.
Revitalization. Okay, I keep saying revitalization.
We certainly would like some preservation.
Okay, and Larry is here to explain, and I'd like to ask him several questions and to try to help myself and the public to see if we can stop the ripping up of the tracks, to contact our local Ulster County legislators, to contact Mike Hine, the county executive, and to ask them to stop ripping up the tracks. But there's something that has gone on, and Larry's going to explain it, of the Ulster U&D Railway Revitalization Corp has filed the legal papers with the Surface Transportation Board in Washington, D.C., and they have legal representation. Larry, could you explain?
Okay, we have been investigating all of our options, trying to understand what's been happening with the rail line and the basis on which the county has been justifying their actions. And what we discovered was kind of a surprise to us. Some weeks ago, we found out that a number of the statements the county had been making were not actually correct. They were supposed to be having the line declared abandoned, and you have to go through the Surface Transportation Board to do that. We could not find any record that they had, and neither could the STB. And there are a number of other issues that arose out of this once we started following this up. So we filed a petition for declaratory relief. We're basically asking for a ruling on what the county is doing. Now, what Ulster County may not have appreciated back in 1979, when they took over the railroad, I believe for tax liens or some related thing, they also, as declaring themselves owners of the line, put themselves under the authority of the federal government in railroad matters. And they have been acting in a manner that suggests they're not fully aware of what that means.
The key word I'm hearing, Larry, is federal government. We have a county government that we're dealing with, but now the federal government is involved with the Surface Transportation Board. I did a little homework on it. It's sort of replaces the Interstate Commerce Commission, which was abolished, and the Surface Transportation Board is responsible for, among other things, railroad tracks and abandoning railroad tracks. So therefore, the Surface Transportation Board definitely needs to be involved.
Yeah, I understand a lot of people don't quite get this. This is not a lawsuit between us and Ulster County. This is between Ulster County and their responsibilities under the Surface Transportation Board. This is something they are supposed to be complying with. It's the law, and there are a lot of questions that have arisen out of what they've been doing.
Have we heard from, since you came out, I believe, Tuesday, with this news release? It was in the Daily Freeman and other publications. Since you come out, has the county replied, as far as you know, yet?
The only statement I've seen so far is the county attorney has said they will not comment on matters under litigation. But if I understand it, this is not a matter of litigation. This is something else. This is a new ballgame.
So they could comment without trouble?
Well, I can't say. I'm not their lawyer.
Okay, sure.
They probably don't want to open up any can of worms. And it's quite possible they are trying to figure out what's going on themselves, because we have the impression, that's all it is, an impression, is they don't really understand how this law works that they're supposed to be complying with.
The evidence shows that they've might have on purpose or innocently bypassed some of the steps that are required.
Well, whether it was intentional, whether it was accidental, whether they were misinformed, laws are out there, and that doesn't help you if you go into court and try to explain to the judge, we didn't know, because they're supposed to know. They are a public government, and this is part of what government is supposed to do, is
Right.
just comply with the law.
Ignorance of the law, even when we get stopped with stop signs and speeding, ignorance of the law is no excuse. And this is a big item for Ulster County taxpayers, like myself and the viewers. This is a big item for hospitality hotels, restaurants, businesses that are making money from the Polar Express and would like to make money 12 months a year to run trains to the Ashokan Reservoir. And we want to get those tracks, we want to stop ripping up the tracks, and we want to put the tracks back. And the county should stop ripping up the tracks. That's the theme of this program. Larry, so it is very possible that the tracks will get restored.
Well, I can't say. That will depend on what the STB decides after they hear from Ulster County and all the other parties that may invite to the table. Because this is bigger than just Ulster County. You have a lot of competing interests. We have this railroad law because railroads used to have a lot of power in this country. And with that power, there were a lot of abuses. So the STB isn't just looking at regulating the railroads, what they can and can't do. They're also looking at what serves the public interest, and that may be the key thing here. We don't believe the public interest is being served by removing the tracks, nor is it being served by the way it's been carried out. People are going to ask, why should I care about this? I don't ride the train. I don't have a business that depends on the train. And unfortunately, the thing is, Ulster County may be on the hook for millions of dollars in costs.
Ulster County Government,
Yes.
and therefore taxpayers.
Taxpayers, plus the effects on the businesses in the area.
Okay, and why are they on the hook for punishment, millions of dollars of punishment? Why?
Well, if Ulster County is the putative owner of the rail corridor, and mind you, this is the rail corridor, this is not to do with the Catskill Mountain Railroad, this is actually about the rail corridor. They have to clear things with the STB if they want to take out a siding, if they want to remove a switch, if they want to remove track, they have to get approval. Part of this goes back to public interest. It goes back to, like providing rail service. In the days when a railroad was the only way to get into a town or move goods and back, a railroad could literally destroy a town by just saying, we're done here, we're leaving, we're gone. So that's part of the law behind this.
That's the reason for in the past, the Interstate Commerce Commission and the Surface Transportation Board at the federal level to protect private train companies and railroad tracks in general from being ripped up without proper oversight by the federal government.
Yeah.
And that's what we got here.
And there's also some related issues. Ulster County has been acting as the owner of the corridor, and as we've been looking into that and the STB looks into it, there may be questions about that ownership as well. It's kind of like being a doctor. If you're a doctor, you can go to medical school and stuff, but if you don't pass your boards, you're not allowed to practice medicine. There are things you have to do to meet those requirements. Ulster County, when they assumed ownership of the railroad, they may not have met the requirements by the federal government that is there to ensure that whoever is operating a rail corridor is qualified, capable, and complying with all the laws. Now, I don't know the history. This goes back to 1979. Maybe people at the time who knew were taking care of those issues. Maybe they didn't. Maybe it's only become a problem recently, but it's got to be addressed. And if Ulster County owns the line, that's one thing. If they don't own the line, that's another thing. But in either case, they're responsible for what they've been doing with the corridor. If they've allowed people to build on the corridor, if they've been letting them build over the tracks, tear them up, those people may not actually have title to the property that they are supposedly in. There are all kinds of questions, and those are going to have to be answered. So,
Okay.
it's going to be fun.
For your organization, the UND Railway Revitalization Corp. Your people, you have some experts, and you have volunteers that have been doing research. Is there any evidence that Ulster County has been involved? Have they been following the rules with the Surface Transportation Board, or have they interacted at the full level with the STB? Is there evidence? Have they? From what I read in the paper and so on, Ulster County has not. There's no evidence that they've interacted with the STB to be fully compliant.
That's my understanding, but of course it's up to the STB to make a determination on that, which is what we've asked for. We believe that Ulster County has been ignoring some key rules and regulations they're supposed to be obeying. So it's going to be up to the STB to rule on that and assess what action follows from that. They may be required to replace all the track. As I said, it will be up to them to decide. And if they do, it's going to be at the county's expense, which means the taxpayers are going to be liable for that with all the other issues.
And that other question I have, county expense. Again, we taxpayers, we ought to pay attention to this. There's three things that Larry's been filling me in on. Replacing the tracks, that's an expense. Dealing with the property owners, there's houses along there's easements along the track. Once you rip up the rails, you have to, a lot of those easements go away. You're going to have to settle with those individual property owners legally. That's expense, number two. And number three, there could be legal action with the city of New York, the department, their Ashokan Reservoir, their interest up there, and this agreement they have with the county. If the county has not been certified by the Surface Transportation Board in Washington, by the federal government, the city of New York might go after Ulster County.
It's possible they are not going to want the county to keep the $2 million they got to rip up the tracks if the tracks don't get ripped up. I can certainly understand that from their point of view. The only ones with a real 100% interest in seeing the tracks removed is New York City, because ultimately they want to protect their water supply. And the idea of the railroad being restored and going back in operation is a matter of great concern to them, understandably. But it's also a great concern to Ulster County and future economic development in this area. Not just tourism, but all the other things
Right.
the rail corridor could do for the area.
But the train has been there for a number of years, and so any worry, I mean, as long as it's a tourist train and not a passenger train, the reservoir's water supply safety is evidence shows that it's pretty well
Yes.
secure. It's okay with a tourist train.
So far as we know.
Yeah.
There's one, for example, they're talking about having the rail bikes come in with the rail explorers. There would have been no problem using the tracks along the corridor for the rail bikes if they're worried about operating diesel locomotives or steam engines on the corridor. That's certainly much less of a risk from New York City's point of view. They could have kept the tracks in place, they could have been using the money from the rail explorers to help restore the tracks, and they would have preserved the corridor for future use if it becomes needed. And we think that that could become a very real possibility down the road, because the area is changing. There's going to be things that will need to be done to keep up with the 21st century, and the rail corridor could be vital for that.
Right. So from my point of view and a lot of the listeners' point of view, keeping extending the Kingston tracks, the Polar Express tracks to Glenford Dyke where the beautiful view of the reservoir is available, keeping the tourist train there, and then keeping the tracks for the bicycle tourism, but keeping the tracks is the key.
Yes.
Common denominator.
Once you take the tracks up, effectively the rail corridor disappears. The rights to do anything in that corridor are up in the air and have to be settled. Now, I understand county statements have been that they have worked out easements, and I have not seen those agreements. I should also mention that I'm not an attorney, but we believe that on the basis of all the other things the county said, that are not so. There should be some questions asked about those easement agreements they claim they have.
Yes, those individual property owners, that in my